Good morning, everyone. On today's episode of Why Does This Exist, we're going to be taking a look at the Century Dynamics PAS12. Now, before we get into the PSA on the POS12, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe, as all that sort of stuff is free, and it does help me out quite a bit. On top of that, go ahead and leave a comment down below about this shotgun and your feelings on it. Now, with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into some of the basics. First off, I did not pay for this shotgun. This shotgun was actually sent out to me by Gun Deals for review for Century Dynamics, so I don't have any relationship with Century Dynamics. This was kind of bartered through Gun Deals. They send me stuff to review on their channel, and then I occasionally also do videos on my channel, which is what I'm doing right now. Now, the PAS12 is the short version of their PA12, so I assume the S stands for short. What we have here is a 14-inch, 26.37 overall length shotgun. It's chambered in 12 gauge. Now, first off, it is a spring-assisted slide, so if you bring the slide back, it will slam itself forward. It is rated for up to 3-inch shells, and I did shoot some 3-inch magnums through this, which were incredibly unpleasant. On top of that, we have a 4+1 capacity, which isn't terrible for such a small shotgun. Well, I shouldn't say that, because it's not a particularly small shotgun, because here is the BF12. These are both sitting on a flat table, and with the muzzle brake installed, these are only about an inch, maybe even less than that difference, and this is a magazine-fed semi-automatic shotgun that is excellent. There should be a video on Gun Deals about this. And this is a spring-assisted pump shotgun that doesn't work. So, getting into that, what we have on top is a Picatinny rail that is a huge chunk of aluminum with some extra pick rail up front. The problem with it is that it is not attached with anything really. So what they ship with is two little nuts that are open-ended, or sorry, bolts that are open-ended. So there's actually no clamping pressure whatsoever. They just thread down to a certain depth. And so you have threads in the barrel. There's little chunks welded onto the barrel that then are threaded or tapped for this thread. And then they're lined up and put in there. So there's only threads on threads. There's no actual clamping force applied. So it does have quite a bit of wobble in it, which is not nice. And if you take off this pick rail, then there's no way to mount an optic or anything else like that. There's not even a bead sight on this, I believe. So that can be quite obnoxious. Now, I should say, before I just rag on this completely, they do make a different model that has a actual Picatinny rail attached to the receiver itself, and it's just really short, like about 4 inches here in the back, and that would be the preferable model to get, because while this is a short shotgun, it is about 6 pounds, which is very heavy, and most of that is this very thick, very heavy aluminum shroud. Up front, we have a externally threaded muzzle brake or standoff device. Honestly, because it is a two-handed shotgun, I didn't notice much of a recoil reduction. I am sure there is some there, but on a short, lightweight, again, it is lighter for most shotguns, on a short, lightweight shotgun, it's not all that noticeable. Now, on the back here, what we have is a bolt holding this stock in place. I'm not sure if it is the same as the Mossberg, I believe, that has an adapter to a buffer tube, so you could actually put on like an SBA3 brace or something else like that. If you did have a brace on here, it would obviously be much more pleasant to shoot. However, again, I didn't find any information online on their website whether it was the same thread pattern or not, so somebody online can correct me if I'm wrong about that. Now, the ergonomics are incredibly simple. You have this bird's eye grip that is uncomfortable and very difficult to aim with, as you kind of need to lift your hand up to get down the sights, or in this case, this little primary arms red dot that I have on here. We have a cross bolt safety. Obviously, when the red is exposed, that means it is ready to fire. And we have a slide release that caused all of the issues that I had with this gun. Before we get into that, and before I really start ragging on it, the trigger on the gun is perfectly acceptable. It's about 4 pounds. There's lots of creep, there's lots of take up, but it's pretty light, and because it's a pump shotgun, it doesn't really matter for follow-up shots, since that's going to be dependent on how fast you can pump it. The problem is that it doesn't let you pump it after you fire. So basically, I never got this gun to fire twice in a row without having to actuate the slide release. The slide release is just a jagged piece of metal If I can, I'll show you guys a picture of it, and I can tell that it has some chunks taken out of it. Basically, it is just either installed improperly or machined improperly. So under harsh recoil, when you fire and try to eject, it actually only comes back to about here, and then it is actually stopped by the slide release. Again, just because that jagged piece of like stamped metal on the inside is either bent or it's in the wrong position. And I did not have the tools or the know-how to take this apart. And again, since it's not my gun, I really can't do that. However, it is basically 100% inoperable. You get one round and then you need to keep the slide forward, push the slide release, and then eject the next one, readjust your grip so you can fire again, and then rinse and repeat. So while I did shoot it, unfortunately, quite a bit, I think I put about 100 rounds through it, not only was it incredibly unpleasant to shoot, but it also just didn't work. Now, shooting impressions of the shotgun are, of course, you need to kind of pull with your left hand forward and then back with your right. So as you fire, you stand up like this, you look down your sights, squeeze the trigger, that sort of thing. The problem that I have with that is that this piece of plastic up here is very slick. There's no texture to it whatsoever, and there's no hand stop. So when I was using 3-inch magnums, the first time I shot it, my thumb slipped forward and slammed into the aluminum rail, which was not very much fun. So it's not a pleasant gun to shoot. It's not a fun gun to shoot. It's not particularly short. Again, this bullpup BF12 that they make as well is about the same length, and it actually runs everything perfectly. At least mine does. Again, QC can be a little shoddy on Turkish shotguns. So overall, to say my experiences were negative would be a massive understatement. Now, I'm also not sure why they have the spring assist on there, because it makes it harder to actually rack the shotgun. I'm not sure if that's just supposed to be a gimmicky thing or if that's something that people actually like on pump shotguns. I did not particularly like it whatsoever, just because, again, it's another thing that goes wrong, and it does mean that you have to pump it even harder than you do normally, and of course it doesn't actually eject without pushing down the slide release to get the shell to eject. Now, I also shot some 1-inch Aguila mini shells through it. Those did not feed properly at all, really, so you kind of had to do it really slow and make sure they didn't flip themselves over. But that is, again, most shotguns aren't going to feed those because they're kind of a gimmicky fun round without any recoil. So overall, I don't think that it's a very effective shotgun either, because again, you only have a 14-inch barrel, which is very short for shotguns. So in some of the slow-mo footage, you can just sit there and watch the pellets go and go and go, and then eventually hit the target in slow motion, because they're going very, very slow. So it wouldn't be a particularly effective, I'm more effective than nothing, obviously, because it is still a 12-gauge shotgun, but not particularly effective compared to other shotguns in a similar price category. Speaking of price, this retails for $600. Yikes. That is a lot of cash. If you remember back in the day, one of my first gun videos that I ever made was the Steven Security 320 that I bought for 150 bucks, and that thing rocked. For 150 bucks, it was about the same weight, honestly, 18.5-inch barrel, pistol grip, way more fun to shoot, way more comfortable, actually worked, which is a big positive when you buy a firearm, and 1/4 the cost. So this is, of course, going to be a non-recommend. I do not like this gimmicky shroud thing, and the fact that it's literally secured by nothing. There's just one end of threads here and the other end of threads here. There's nothing actually clamping those two things together. And if I were to find bolts, I would have to find a bolt in the right thread pattern that had a small enough head to fit in between the Picatinny, or just lose the Picatinny. And again, it's a shotgun. It's a 14-inch handheld shotgun, so there's not a lot of stuff you're going to be putting on here. Lights, lasers, that sort of thing are going to be very difficult to actuate unless you can mount them to the slide itself, which is why you see like the Magpul 870, they have those with the light integrated, because that's where you leave your hand. So if you need to push a button somewhere else, it means you can't actuate the slide, which is a big problem when working the gun is dependent upon you having your hand on the slide. So here's the deal. Even if this was my personal shotgun and I sent it back to Century Dynamics for warranty, and they either replaced it or fixed it, no questions asked, and they made me happy, I would still hate this shotgun because I don't like what it's designed to do. It's not really all that short, and it's definitely not very pleasant to shoot. As far as 12 gauges go, this is on the more miserable end, and it's just very, very gimmicky, because again, you know, its claim to fame is that it's, whoa, it's very short, very small, very compact. The problem is it's only barely barely, and this is with the stock fully extended, barely shorter than an 11.5 AR-15 with a 30-round magazine that has no recoil and can touch targets out to 300, 400, 500 yards without issue. So, do I think that this would make a good home defense shotgun if it was working? No, there's better options, most certainly better options, more easy to use options for sure. Anything that allows you to actually get a full grip, better recoil control, better aiming, that sort of thing is going to do a lot better. In terms of concealability, again, it doesn't really beat out a short AR-15. If I collapse the stock on this guy, suddenly the AR-15 is actually shorter and easier to conceal. So again, it doesn't really have any use cases that I can think of other than you think it looks cool, which is fine if you want to spend your money on something that may or may not work, but it looks cool and that's your jam. I am fine with people buying things that just look cool, but again, I'm talking about actually using it and how practical is it for me in my circumstances, and the answer is it's not at all. So, at the end of the day, for 600 bucks, again, it's also expensive for what it is as well. I can't really recommend it. It was a dumpster fire to shoot, and I'm sure, again, even if it was working properly and I could just sit there and painfully fire round after round, I wouldn't enjoy it, and I don't enjoy what it does. I don't think it makes sense in any use case that I can think of, again, compared to even similar options, cheaper options, much more usable options. Yeah. Not a big fan. So why does this exist? It exists to piss me off. So that's about it for the video, guys. I hope you all enjoyed. Let me know what you guys think of this shotgun. And if there's anyone out there that actually has one of these styles of shotgun and has a real use case for it, and you want to let me know what that is, go ahead and comment that down below. And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace off. Break my finger. What the hell? Okay, but hold it. What the hell?